There's a person sitting across from you right now who already knows. They don't have proof. They haven't checked your phone. They haven't hired anyone. They haven't asked the right question yet, but they already know. And the most terrifying part isn't what they're going to do with that knowledge. It's that they've known for longer than you think. And they've been watching, quietly, patiently, waiting for you to either come clean or confirm what they already feel. That person is an empath. And if you've ever tried to lie to one, this is what actually happened inside that conversation, whether you knew it or not. Most people think lying is a language problem. You say the wrong thing, you get caught. Simple. But that's not how the human brain works, and it's not how empaths operate. Lying isn't a verbal act. It's a full-body physiological event. The moment you decide to say something you know is false, your autonomic nervous system, the part of your brain that handles survival, registers a threat. Not an external threat, an internal one. Your own body knows you're about to do something dangerous, and it responds. Your pupils microdilate, your vocal cords tighten by fractions of a millimeter, changing your pitch in ways you'll never consciously notice. Your breathing shifts pattern. Your blink rate changes. Your micro-expressions, those involuntary flashes of emotion that last less than a fifth of a second, start leaking the truth before a single word leaves your mouth. Psychologist Paul Ekman spent decades cataloging these signals. He found that even trained liars, people who practice deception professionally, cannot fully suppress what their face does in the half-second before they compose themselves. The truth always leaks. Always. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most people miss these signals entirely, not because the signals are too small, but because most people are focused on the content of what you're saying, not the container it comes in. They're listening to the words. Empaths are not listening to the words. They are scanning the entire transmission, tone, rhythm, body, energy, timing, for the thing that doesn't add up. And something almost always doesn't add up. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Empaths didn't choose this. This isn't a superpower they were born with or a skill they deliberately cultivated. In most cases, it's a survival mechanism. The research on this is striking. A significant number of people who identify as highly empathic grew up in environments where emotional unpredictability was constant. A parent who could shift from calm to volatile in seconds. A home where reading the room wasn't optional. It was how you stayed safe. When a child grows up navigating that kind of emotional minefield, their nervous system literally rewires itself to become more sensitive to emotional signals. The brain dedicates more resources to threat detection, to reading microsignals, to sensing the gap between what someone says and what they actually mean. This isn't metaphor. Neuroimaging research has shown that highly empathic individuals have measurably higher activation in regions of the brain associated with emotional mirroring and threat detection. Their mirror neuron systems are running at a higher baseline. They feel what you feel, sometimes before you've consciously registered it yourself. So when you lie to an empath, you're not just saying something false. You're broadcasting a signal into a system that was built specifically to catch exactly that kind of signal. And you probably did it anyway, because that's what we do. Now I want to tell you about a specific moment, one that plays out in thousands of relationships, in thousands of variations every single day. Because understanding this moment might be the most important thing you take away from everything I'm about to tell you. Imagine you made a mistake. It doesn't matter what the mistake was. Maybe you betrayed someone's trust. Maybe you did something you knew you shouldn't have. Maybe you simply did something and decided it would be easier not to mention it. You constructed a version of events, a reasonable sounding version. Maybe you even practiced it. You walked back into the relationship carrying that constructed version, feeling reasonably confident. And the empath looked at you and said, "Hey, how'd it go?" And you told them. And here's what happened in that moment that you couldn't see. Their body registered something before their mind caught up. A slight internal wrongness, like a note slightly off pitch in a song you know by heart. They didn't know what it was yet. They smiled, they responded, the conversation moved forward. But something in them had already noted the signal, filed it. The investigation had already begun. This is what makes it so devastating. Empaths often don't confront in real time. They watch. They note inconsistencies. They start running the pattern across previous conversations. They'll remember something you said 3 weeks ago, Compare it to something you said last Tuesday. Compare both of those to what you just said and feel the triangulation click into place. Not immediately. Sometimes over days, sometimes over months, but it clicks. Because the signal was always there. They just needed enough data points to be certain. And during that entire window, while you think you've gotten away with it, they've been watching more carefully. You think the pressure is off. They've just applied it silently. Here's the second thing you need to understand, and this one is uncomfortable. The lie itself is rarely what damages the relationship. What actually damages the relationship is what the lie tells the empath about you, about your assessment of them. When you lie to an empath, you're sending a message underneath the lie. You're saying, I don't believe you can handle the truth, or I don't trust this relationship to survive honesty, or worse, I don't respect your ability to see clearly, so I'll just redirect you. That's what lands. Not the false information, the implied insult buried inside it. Empaths take this personally, and they're right to, because it is personal. Most people who lie in relationships think they're managing the other person's feelings. They call it protecting them. But what it actually is a unilateral decision that you know better than the other person what they can handle. That's not protection. That's control dressed in compassion's clothing. And empaths, who have spent their lives being acutely aware of emotional dynamics, almost always recognize the difference between being protected and being managed. Even when they can't articulate it immediately, they feel managed. And that feeling corrodes the relationship from the inside out. Now let's talk about what actually happens inside an empath when they know, but don't say anything yet. This is the stage that most people misread completely. They take the empath's silence as acceptance. They mistake calm for certainty. They think, well, I told my story, they didn't push back, we're fine. But here's what's actually happening inside the empath during that silence. They're in a war. On one side is what they feel, the certainty, the signal, the wrongness they can't dismiss no matter how much they try. On the other side is what they want to believe, that the person they care about wouldn't do this, that maybe they're being too sensitive, that maybe their radar is wrong this time. Empaths are not immune to hope, and that hope, that desire to believe the best, is often used against them. Not deliberately, maybe, but used nonetheless. This internal war is exhausting. It runs in the background of every conversation, every text, every moment shared together. The empath is smiling at dinner while simultaneously running a parallel analysis on something you said 2 days ago. They're present with you while also carrying the weight of what they know and haven't confirmed yet. Over time, this war takes a physical toll. Research on emotional labor and chronic low-grade stress shows that sustained internal conflict, the kind that comes from knowing something feels wrong but being unable to act on it, elevates cortisol levels, disrupts sleep architecture, and contributes to the kind of ambient anxiety that's hard to explain and harder to shake. The body keeps the score, and the empath's body is keeping a very detailed score. At some point, one of three things happens. The first, you come clean. You tell the truth. And if you do this before they've lost faith in you completely, something remarkable can happen. Because here's what most people don't understand about empaths and honesty. They are extraordinarily forgiving of the truth. Not because they're naive, because they understand at a bone-deep level how hard it is to be honest when you're afraid. An empath who has watched you construct and maintain a lie knows what it costs you to finally dismantle it. They've tracked the weight it's been putting on you. They've felt the guilt leaking through your interactions even as you maintain the story. When you finally come clean, many empaths experience something close to relief, not because the truth is easy, but because the dishonesty was harder. The gap between your words and your energy finally closes. And for an empath, that alignment, that sense of the signal and the message finally matching, is one of the most grounding feelings that exists. The second, they confront you with what they know. And if you lie again, if you look them in the eye and maintain the story when they've already triangulated the truth, something permanent happens. Something that can't be undone with an apology later. Because now it's not just the original lie, it's the choice to continue lying when given the exit. That choice tells the empath everything they need to know about what you're willing to do to protect yourself at their expense. That moment, that second lie in the face of knowing, is the one that breaks the trust at a structural level. The third, they go silent. not temporarily, not as a communication tactic. They go silent the way a fire goes silent when it finally runs out of fuel. They stop fighting for clarity. They stop asking questions. They stop leaving doors open. And they begin, quietly and methodically, the process of emotional withdrawal. This is the most dangerous outcome. Not because of what's lost now, but because of what's lost permanently. Let me explain what that silence actually is. When an empath reaches that withdrawal stage, they've done something that required tremendous internal effort. They've overridden their own natural instinct, which is to connect, to understand, to give another chance, and replaced it with self-protection. That override doesn't happen quickly. It's the result of accumulated weight, of signals ignored too many times, of hope extended and disappointed enough times that the hope itself has become a liability. And once that override is in place, once the empath has made the internal decision to stop investing emotional energy in the relationship, the warmth that was once effortless becomes genuinely impossible to replicate. Not as punishment, not as strategy, but because the emotional resource that once flowed freely in your direction has been redirected inward to heal the damage your dishonesty caused. Here's what that looks like from the outside. The empath still functions. They still talk to you, respond to you, maybe even seem fine, but the quality of the attention has changed. There's a glass wall where there used to be open air, and you feel it even if you can't name it. Because this is the thing about emotional withdrawal. It's contagious. The energy you've been receiving is the energy you've learned to expect. When it changes, you feel the change in your own nervous system, even without understanding why. Now here's the part that most content about empaths never talks about. The part that matters most. What do you do if you're on the wrong side of this equation? Not as an empath, as the person who lied. The answer is not what most people try first. Most people, when they sense they're losing an empath's trust, escalate. They perform more emotion. They offer more reassurance. They try to fill the gap with volume, more words, more gestures, more demonstrations of care that feel slightly hollow even as they're being offered. Empaths don't experience this as genuine recovery. They experience it as more signal to analyze, because authenticity has a specific frequency and performance doesn't match it. An empath can feel the difference between someone who's genuinely sorry and someone who's afraid of losing the relationship. Those are different emotional states. They produce different signals. And the empath system registers which one you're actually in. What actually works, and I want to be direct about this because it's the counterintuitive core of everything I've said, is radical, uncomfortable, undefended honesty. Not performed vulnerability. Not strategic openness designed to win them back. Actual honesty, even when it costs you. Even when it makes you look worse, even when there's no strategic benefit to it whatsoever. Because that kind of honesty, the kind that comes without positioning, without spin, without protective framing, feels completely different to an empath than managed disclosure. It feels like the wall coming down. And when an empath feels that wall come down, when they feel the gap between your words and your energy finally close, something in them responds. Not necessarily with immediate forgiveness, but with recognition, with the sense that they are finally in contact with the actual person, not the version that person has been projecting. That contact is what was always missing. And contact is the only thing that can begin to rebuild what dishonesty took apart. There's something else worth knowing, something about what empaths ultimately learn from being lied to, because this is where the long-term behavioral shift happens. And it's something that affects everyone who comes after you in their life. Every time an empath is significantly deceived, they recalibrate. Their internal detection system gets more sophisticated. Not more paranoid, more accurate. They become better at distinguishing between the people who are honest and uncomfortable about it, and the people who are comfortable because they've gotten good at appearing honest. They become less willing to override their initial signal for the sake of social ease. They become more willing to hold the discomfort of acknowledging what they feel, even when the other person denies it. In short, they become harder to deceive, but they also become more selective, more guarded at the entry point, more willing to let relationships that feel slightly off remain at the surface level indefinitely. Which means that the people who come after you, people who might be entirely honest, who might deserve full access to this person's remarkable capacity for connection, encounter a version of them that's been tightened by what you did. The collateral damage of dishonesty in a relationship with an empath isn't just what you lose. It's what they lose access to in themselves because of what they had to do to protect what you damaged. Think about that for a moment. Every lie told to someone capable of deep emotional connection doesn't just damage the liar's relationship with that person. It makes that person's openness slightly more expensive for everyone who comes next. You are not just affecting your relationship, you are affecting their capacity to show up in all of them. This is why what you do in your closest relationships isn't a private matter. It reverberates. Now, here is what I want you to take from everything I've just told you. Not fear, not guilt, not the creeping suspicion that an empath in your life is quietly compiling a case against you right now. Though if they are, you should probably do something about that. What I want you to take is this. There are people in your life whose greatest gift to you is their ability to see you. Not the version of you that you present carefully. You. The part of you that's frightened and uncertain and sometimes does things you're not proud of and knows it. Those people, if they've chosen to extend that gift in your direction, are offering you something that is genuinely rare in a world that runs on performance and positioning and carefully managed impressions. They're offering you the possibility of being actually known. You can spend your energy building elaborate structures of misdirection, or you can understand that the person across from you already sees through them and decide what you want to do with the fact that you've been seen. Because here's the quiet truth at the center of all of this. The reason lying to an empath is so uniquely costly isn't just that they'll catch you. It's that they were the one person who might have accepted the truth, and you chose not to find out.